All right. Welcome into this edition of the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast. Corey Moen, Evan Byrne. Evan, how we doing?
Well, from last week, a lot better.
You got that right. Goodness gracious. They, the Bucks had a solid week. Outside of the loss to the Knicks, they were able to knock off the Celtics and the Magic. So, what more can you ask for? What more can you ask for? I admitted to Evan to this, but I gotta admit to you guys, I hadn't been paying a whole lot of attention to the games, and the only reason why is because it's extremely hard for me to get interested in April regular season basketball, especially with baseball season just starting up. I'm kind of going my attention a little bit towards that. So, again, Evan will kind of help me fill in the gaps that I did watch the Knicks game. Did not look good last Sunday. Lost 122 to 109. So, let's get right into it. So, Evan, what did you see from Milwaukee's performance against New York?
Well, it was going well, and then the second half started, and then it did not go well. Just to sum it up for you, I feel like the worst thing was Jalen Brunson and DiVincenzo just making almost every single shot they were taking. DiVincenzo went 8 for 11 on 3-pointers, so I felt like that was the key reason as to why they lost. He gave Jalen Brunson 43 points. He gave DiVincenzo 26, 24 of them just on 3-pointers alone. And it's one of those things where it's when an ex-Bucks player kills you like that, it's always like heartbreaking because he didn't really do that for us as much, but then when they leave, they do a lot better. But what they're paying him, he just wasn't doing well in the Bucks after his injury. So I'm glad he's succeeding, but don't succeed against the Bucks. But yeah, it was really just Brunson and DiVincenzo going off. He had a couple other guys kind of chip in, but yeah, for the Bucks, I just felt like they had it in the first half, and then the second half just started, and they slowly just could not hit a shot. It was really just a Giannis game and a Lillard game, and then you can throw in Bobby Portis as well as the big three. But again, just no one can hit a shot. I felt like rebound-wise, they were just getting destroyed on the offensive rebounds, giving up 13 to their 9. So again, only 4 difference, but that can really make a difference. But otherwise, I just felt like sloppy play for the whole rest of the second half. One of the things that does suck, though, for this game was that Chris Middleton went out. Chris Middleton just cannot catch a break, and I feel really bad for this man because this was the unintentional hand to the mouth. I think it was Dante coming down and just knocked a tooth out of Chris Middleton. So he only played about like 12, 13 minutes, 5 points. So that's also a game breaker if you have Chris Middleton in. Does he kind of contribute a little more to kind of get you back into the potential winning? But otherwise, just really that second half, really the third quarter that just really set the Bucks back and just could not really climb back from their 11-point lead in the second half, which really isn't a lot anymore in the NBA, but still is a double-digit lead that they just could not carry.
Yeah, and I'm going to kind of take a look at, what kind of went on, what the focus was for why Milwaukee performed the way they did last week. So let's take a quick gander. So obviously losing 122 to 109. I mean, this doesn't even surprise me. Jalen Brunson's always been a Bucks killer. He's average. He's averaged a lot of points against Milwaukee. That doesn't even surprise me. Dante DiVincenzo, throwing in a nice 26 as you mentioned. But how about Bogdanovich? Like, this guy's always been a Bucks killer. So essentially, I didn't even really need to watch this game because like the two guys who always killed Milwaukee, which doesn't even surprise me in the slightest. I mean, look at everybody else. Mitchell Robinson, Miles McBride, Achua, Hartenstein at 18. I mean, Hartenstein at 18 points. See, now that's kind of that's crazy to me. Yeah, like you said, it was the third quarter, 39-24. Yikes.
Yeah, they were getting blown out they only scored 24 in each of the second and fourth quarter, so 48 in the second half. So not going to win you games.
I don't even know what these stats are. Let's see. Giannis had a nice 28. Load had 23. Bobby Portis been scoring a lot off the bench recently, but then everybody else just kind of shit the bed.
Correct.
All right. And I don't understand what Andre Jackson Jr. has to do to get more minutes. I really don't. I don't. Okay. There was a game last week, and I wanted to bring this up, but I didn't want to sound like I was being like, because I kind of watched the game back. So I'm like, what does Andre Jackson Jr. have to do to get more minutes? And hang on, I'm trying to remove this. I didn't remove. Okay. I was just trying to see what he has to do to get more minutes. And honestly, I honestly don't know. I think the only reason why he came in there, okay, is because Doc Rivers was like, Jesus, I need a spark. He's a spark guy. Like, I just don't understand how Milwaukee doesn't look different without him being in there. It's crazy to me.
My issue is that one of the only things that I liked about Adrian Griffin is that he played Andre Jackson Jr. Even Chris Livingston at points, he played him. But my rant is that I never want Pat Connaughton to play for the Bucks after this season. I can't stand him anymore. He played 31 minutes against the Knicks. You could not have given 15 of those to Andre Jackson Jr., even 10. Played 4 minutes, that garbage 4 minutes. Pat Connaughton played 31 minutes. I feel like it's because Chris went out, but come on. Like, he shot 1 for 5. He couldn't shoot a ball to make it for his life. Can't hit the ocean with a beach ball. It's so bad, and it's so frustrating because he just shoots, and like they're not even close. Some of his shots, the bricks that he is collecting, it's not even like a good shot. They are so off, and it's so frustrating watching him play 30 minutes to do absolutely nothing. 31 minutes, 1 for 5, 1 rebound, 2 assists, 3 fouls.
And I think the reason why he's still on Milwaukee, okay, is because it's revisionist history, but the reason why Grayson Allen isn't a Buck anymore and Pat Connaughton still is simply comes out of playoff performance. If you remember Pat Connaughton's first year in Milwaukee, okay, how massive he was in the Celtics series, okay, how massive he was a couple years later as he helped Milwaukee win a championship, okay. That's really what it just comes down to. It just comes down to playoff performance, and to management, like Pat Connaughton's been playing really well in the playoffs. So I can understand what the frustration that comes for a lot of people where it's like, oh, he has not played well the last 2 years, but I think there are certain things
perform this year though. I'll take it back.
There are certain things that he does better than Grayson Allen. I wouldn't say shooting, but I would say he is a better defender. That he does put in effort on that side. So, and again, he's going to be one of the main performers this year coming off the bench for Doc Rivers. And he's going to have to step up, okay? If you talk to any NBA athlete, they say the number one key to winning a championship is you got to have the role players step up. Milwaukee did not have good enough role players last year. Okay. And their bench performance for the past 2 seasons, ever since they won the championship, has been shoddy at best.
Yeah, their bench hasn't been good since they won.
Bobby Portis is shoddy in the postseason. Pat Connaughton's shoddy in the postseason. Throw out any name. Pat Beverly's playing with a torn ligament in his wrist. So it's can that bench provide a little more this year? I don't know. That'll be the $1 million question is what can we get out of Milwaukee's bench this season heading into the postseason?
Yeah, I just hope they can produce. Obviously, it's not going to be every single game that everyone's going to come out and shoot lights out. That's not what's. It's not going to happen. It's not realistic, but it's one of those things where one can hope that some of these guys who just did not have the best regular season can kind of show some improvement into the postseason, or just kind of play the role that they are there to do. Obviously, if you're not there to shoot, don't just keep shooting. If you're here to play defense, play defense. You got to do whatever you got to do, but yeah, that Knicks game definitely was not a good show up, but the last two though that they've played so far was a little bit of a bounce back after the losing streak that they've been on.
Yep. So moving on to the next game, they had a game Wednesday against the Boston Celtics. TNT able to pull off that win. A nice little 104-91 victory over the Boston Celtics. I guess what was your reaction to watching this game?
A lot better than I've seen in the past few games that they've been playing. One of the things that I felt like was kind of key to help, especially in the start, was Brook came out hot with his 3-pointers, shot 5 for 8. And I think like 3 of them were in a row, or he had a couple right away in the start of the game. And then another thing that I felt like was good to kind of note. This one's a little different how I had it set up. Chris Middleton did come back, so obviously his injury against the Knicks was really just for that game, which again makes sense. You're not going to come back out after you lose a tooth. Came back, 12 points, so a good contribution there. But yeah, it was really just a lot of stagnant shooting, not necessarily one player kind of taking over. 12, 15, 15, 20, 12, 15. So a lot of double-digit scoring. And then from your role guys, Pat Connaughton, again, 4 points. AJ Green, 6 points. Malik Beasley, I believe, came off the bench for this game. I think the first one this season that he did that. Didn't shoot well. He's in a little bit of a slump, which I felt like was kind of common throughout the season. He would get hot, then he would cool off, and then it bounces around. But kind of get out of the way before the playoffs start. But I know one of the things we were going to mention, Giannis went out with the injury this game. I think it was in the third quarter. He didn't play the fourth quarter. Just that non-contact calf strain injury that came to be, which, not gonna lie, kind of got a little quiet at that point. Giannis is always one of those guys where he falls, he looks hurt, and no one can say anything, and then he gets up and runs it off. But this one definitely was not. So little left calf strain injury, sitting out for the rest of the season. So we'll kind of see what they do come playoffs in the next few weeks. But hoping nothing too crazy, that if he has to miss a game or two, that they can kind of hold it down and win at least one of them. I don't want to do what happened last season again.
And again, I don't mean to sound morbid here, but sometimes, I can't be surprised when an injury like this occurs, especially for Giannis, because throughout his 11-year career, like I said, he is a high contact player, and he's gonna get nicked up from time to time. Now, the scariest part about this one is the fact that it was just off an inbound, so it wasn't like you ran into somebody. Mm-hmm. It was
going around him.
Something just gave out in his calf, or as a clinical term, the soleus. When injuries like this occur, usually they have a Twitter doctor who's like, oh my God, what's gonna happen here? Or there's a Twitter doctor who usually outlines the severity of what the strain is. So, if it's a mild one, I believe it's 2 to 3 weeks. If it's a more moderate one, maybe more or less a month. If it's serious, if it's a severe, probably the whole season. 6 weeks, I'd say. So, expect Giannis to miss at least the last 2 games, and then probably some games in the first round, because a calf strain is something you want to be really careful of. That is a precursor for or it could be a torn Achilles, or blown out your Achilles. And a lot of that comes on non-contact too. People love to use this example. The Kevin Durant injury from the Warriors back in 2019 against the Raptors. His Achilles just gave out on a non-contact injury. So Milwaukee's medical staff, they have to do the right thing here and just be extremely careful. Like his calf better be 100%. Okay? Because if you rush him back, like that's something that the medical staff will be catching flag for a long time. I understand they want to see Giannis out there to, help with our title aspirations. But it's not but it's going to be even worse if he's going to have to miss like the entire year next year if like something were to happen, if they were to rush him back. So treat this with kid gloves. Like I think Bucks fans should be understand that aspect of it. Is look, yes, we want you to spend the rest of your career a Buck, okay? And look, Achilles injuries, it is probably the hardest injury to come back from and still be the same player. Like, it is. You cannot. I don't even know if recent memory, if you can name an athlete who tore his Achilles and he came back as the same guy.
It's a rare process.
It is because look, because there are advances for for baseball, for example, for a Tommy John surgery. Football, when you tear your ACL, you could kind of come back as the same player. I mean, you might lose a little speed or, whatever your attribute was. Achilles, now at Giannis' age, where it's like he's in the middle of his prime and he suffers that's not something you could easily just come back from. Maybe if you're younger. If Giannis were younger, he'd be able to, but he is kind of considered an older player now. So this will be a process that Milwaukee will have to be careful. They'll have to be meticulous. Like treat this with kid gloves.
Yeah, I kind of see it as the fan of me obviously wants him back by the playoffs, but you're going to want to do whatever you can to not wreck it for the future, I guess. You don't want to cause anything where the start of the next season you got like 3 quarters in, you still don't have Giannis. So I'll take whatever it is to kind of keep him long term than it is to keep him short term for here. But yeah, it was very unfortunate just to kind of see it happen, especially the non-contact ones. I think are the worst because it's nothing like really could have done it to you except just walking. He was walking right next to Lillard, no one around him, fell to the ground, and Lillard kind of looked at him like, uh-oh. But yeah, then he did walk off on his own, which is kind of helpful. It's one of those things where you kind of see him leave. It's not like he's limping or someone's got to cart him off or anything like that. So that was, I guess, a good sign. But yeah, definitely could have been a lot worse. But again, hoping that they just kind of play it safe and kind of go from there and just work around that. You still got a little time before the playoffs, so it's not like you got to really rush things to get them ready for a few days from now. So do whatever you can. But yeah, it's a little frustrating, a little sucks just because that's kind of what happened last year into the playoffs. He gets hurt in game 1. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, so far, just kind of play it safe.
And this is one of those rare instances where, Giannis has a significant voice in the organization. But when it comes to this, the doctors be like, dude, your calf isn't 100% healthy. We're holding you out. Like, you have to stand up to him because he's going to push every inch to try to get back in the first round series. And by the way, and here's the other thing too. It's a first round series. Like, if we don't have Giannis for the entire first round and the Bucks somehow lose, then let's be honest, that team really wasn't that good to begin with. Okay, I mean let's be fair here. It's that I don't want to hear people blame about like, oh well, Giannis wasn't in, so that's why we. No, I don't want to hear that. We got Damian Lillard.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is Dame time, right? This is Dame time. John Horst also assembled this team together to put around Giannis. John Horst should know you don't win an NBA Finals with one guy. So if we're really hellbent and relying on Giannis to win like a first round series, then how good were they really? To be quite honest with you, injuries happen all the time in the NBA. Okay, and even if Giannis were playing, like still bench players have to step up too. Okay, they're the best players in the world. They should step up just a little bit, especially Malik Beasley.
Yeah.
Who you personally have had an on and off beef with through the whole season.
Yeah, he could be so lethal, but then he just isn't. Obviously, you can't shoot well from the three every single game. It's physically impossible. But to go from like 6 of 9 to 2 of 13, it's like, come on, there's no consistency. But the one other thing I wanted to mention from this game, I noticed it kind of like going into halftime, but then like people were reporting about it. The free throws attempted that game, there were two for the Bucks, 0 for the Celtics.
Oh yeah. That set a record, didn't they?
Yeah, I pulled that article back up, and it was they combined for a record low 2 free throws attempts on Tuesday. The Bucks didn't commit a foul until I think it was like 40 seconds left in the second quarter. Chris committed a foul, but they overturned it, so obviously that doesn't count. But yeah, it was almost into halftime before the Bucks committed a foul.
What? I'll have to rewatch this game, but like, and obviously you were watching it pretty closely. Like, was it? It didn't sound like a physical game where it's like that should have been a foul.
No, and I saw people post like obviously like bigger NBA accounts will post like, oh, the Celtics shot 0 free throws, and people are like, oh, it looks like the refs were sleeping tonight or their whistles were resting. It's like, but it really wasn't like a hack kind of game. Especially, it's not like the Bucks had 30 free throws and the Celtics had 0. That would be a little suspicious. But they had 2, Celtics had 0. It was kind of called both ways. It really wasn't like it was a pretty high 3-point shooting game. The Celtics shot 52 3-pointers. Why would they be needing free throws when everything's kind of coming behind the arc? Buck shot 36 3-pointers, so it's like the paint wasn't really open for the Celtics, so why would they be attacking if they shot over 50 3-pointers? That's their game. That's what they do.
And the other thing, too, it also comes down to motivation. Like, how motivated was Boston really to win this game? And it didn't sound like there was, it didn't sound like they were that motivated to be playing this game. I mean, look at this. Jason Tatum had 22. Brown had 14. Drew Holiday had 12. By the way, speaking of Drew Holiday, congrats on getting the bag. You deserve it.
Yep, I was going to mention that, too.
Yep, congrats to him. He deserves it. And we've talked about before, we missed Drew Holiday on the Bucks. It kind of sucks how everything went down, but this is kind of what he wanted. So I'm happy that he got his well-deserved contract in Boston. But yeah, I don't think Boston. It felt like they just didn't really give two shits about because they already locked up the 1 seed. So it's like it also comes down to motivation, where it's like we're not going for a record here. And also I could also tell they didn't give a shit because Patrick Beverley scored 20 points, which is. Was that layups? Was that 3-pointers? How'd Patrick Beverley score 20 points?
The majority, he had 4 3-pointers, so about half and half. A little over.
He had to have been wide open.
Yeah, a few.
He had to have been wide open. They did not give. They gotta give two shits about guarding Patrick Beverley, rightfully so. But I'm just saying. Jesus, yeah, Boston I don't think was motivated to win that game. Which again, you could say that sometimes. You could say it's kind of like I know you're not a college football fan. It's kind of like when, your college football team is in a shitty bowl game and they're just not motivated to be there. That's kind of what it's like when Boston's already locked up the top seed, and it's just like, I could give two shits about this game, about playing in this. It's basically to them like a flag football game for the like in the Pro Bowl, where it's like we're not going to overexert ourselves. We're just going to like kind of go through the motions of playing in the NBA. So that's kind of what it feels like. You can say sometimes teams don't try to win. They actively just don't, especially like when you don't need to, when you don't really need to be like overexert yourself like that. So good win for the Bucks. Moving on to the last game that they had this week. They beat the up and coming Orlando Magic 117 to 99. Cole Anthony went off 23. Cole Anthony's had a few good games against the Bucks. Not surprised about that. Paul Banchero's a dog. He had 20. Jalen Suggs, he had 18. Nice. Who else we got? Ooh, BP had 30. Dame had 29. I mean, that was wow.
Yeah,
Bobby Portis.
A no Giannis game means Bobby scores 25 and up. I feel like every single time, no Giannis. I feel like it's obviously Giannis being injured, that sucks. You want him to play. But I feel like whenever Giannis plays and Lillard doesn't, they don't do as well. But when Lillard plays and Giannis doesn't, I feel like they have a lot more success. I feel like Lillard is a good play runner, I guess. Obviously, as a point guard, but he knows where to feed guys, and he knows how to get guys to have open shots. I just felt like him and Bobby have a good kind of connection on that, especially against that Suns game, where Bobby kind of went off for like 5 or 6 3-pointers. I feel like Lillard just knows where to find these guys. Maybe got a Lillard 29, but yeah, the Bobby 30-point game I feel like is something that needs to be talked more, especially almost having a double-double. But yeah, 18 shots, only missed 4. Went 2 for 2 on threes. I don't know. I just feel like he could be one of those guys. If Giannis is out for multiple games in the playoffs, I feel like they're going to need Bobby to step up. Now, is he going to go 14 of 18 every game? Probably not. But if he can get a guy, or if Lillard can find a guy like him to kind of get that 20 to 25-point range, I feel like we're in a good place, especially playing a team younger like this. That's, again, the Bucks aren't the youngest team anymore, but the Magic, they got all this number one. Used to have all the number one picks. They have a lot of young guys who are fast and get around us. But I just felt like they played a good tempo. Lillard, I felt like ran the offense correctly, and I felt like they did it efficiently throughout the whole game. There wasn't really a time where I felt nervous about this game. But yeah, just a lot of it just kind of came from Bobby and not Giannis, Lillard. But otherwise, you got 10 points, from Brooke, 14 from Jay Crowder, which was a good game, and then 13 from Beverly. So again, a little stagnant shooting game for the guys who did play, and again with no Giannis or Chris. So it's just going to be one of those things where we'll kind of see what happens with the playoffs and who can play and who can't. But if Bobby and Lillard can kind of get on a little hot streak and a little chemistry together, I feel like that could be a little lethal duo come that first round if Giannis is out.
Yeah, and it'll be massive for Bobby Portis to have a good performance because, the whole trade Bobby idea that was happening, especially earlier in the season, was due to his playoff performances. So he's gonna have to put it together today or in the postseason, especially if Giannis is out. We need that scoring coming off the bench.
Yeah, and I know for locking up the home seed, the seed to kind of get that home court advantage. I know if he has a game like this, the crowd's going to get into it. He's going to get the crowd hyped. It's going to be a good environment, I feel like, too, for those games. So I feel like just they're going to have the home court advantage. If they get the second seed, they're going to have to use that to their advantage because, again, they did not do too well with it last season. A lot of blown games versus baseball. See, I got baseball in my head. But I don't know. It's a little scary again without having Giannis potentially because, again, we know what happened last year. But I feel a lot more confident going into the playoffs. Obviously, we had Giannis going into the playoffs. He got hurt that first game. But I feel more confident with the team that they have now than they did last year, kind of being able to hold down again, potentially an 8th seed or the playing team that would then kind of play in. I don't know. It depends on the seed that they get, but we'll kind of see how that goes. But I'm a little more confident, I feel like, with how Bobby's been playing since the trade deadline. Again, we were on our toes on what was going to happen with him, but it was one of the things where if they're not going to trade him, he's going to have to step up, which I feel like he's clearly done. Obviously, there's a couple games where he didn't, but as of recently, I feel a lot more confident with Bobby and his potential playoff play as well.
Yep. So gonna close on the podcast with a couple more topics. Trying to think of a way how to phrase this, so I'm just gonna phrase it. How much of an impact will Giannis's injury have on the team heading into the postseason?
I feel like if I'm going to let me pull up the conference. If they lock the second seed, well, I don't want Easter 2024. I want Eastern Conference standings 2024. I feel like it's going to depend on who they're playing. So right now they're the second seed. So I believe if they got to win one game to get the second seed. And I know the Knicks have to win out and the Bucks have to lose out, which I hope doesn't happen. But I feel like it depends on who they're playing. But if I were to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like I'm really nervous, I'm going to say like 6 to 7. Again, I'm still pretty nervous that our top player isn't playing, but there's also that very small room of I feel like the guys that they have can hold it down. I wouldn't be like a 3 or a 4 because I feel like that's lying. And a 5 is like, oh, it's, it is what it is. I feel like there should be a little kind of worry for Bucks fans and just the Bucks in general, but I feel like there is a chance with the guys. I mean, they did win a game last year in that series without Giannis, so there is a chance, but yeah, it'll just have to be who they play and how they're going to come out, I guess, game 1. If they don't do well game 1 and Giannis is out for game 2, we'll probably like slowly start to worry a little more and that number might go up, but yeah, it's just going to depend on who they're playing and can Lillard be that leader that they need to kind of carry them into a few wins, potentially to be up before Giannis gets back.
Yeah, and as I was thinking about it, I'm gonna go about 6.5. Mm-hmm. I'm not, because I do think they are a talented bunch, and I think they have played. Now, if Adrian Griffin were coaching this team, I would be way more concerned because that team was never ready to play if Giannis or Lillard never played or weren't playing that night. So I think Doc Rivers has gotten this team to be playing a lot more better, a lot more team-oriented basketball. There's no egos on this team, which is something I can appreciate. But, I do think that with Malik Beasley and with Lillard and with Brook Lopez, Connaughton, Middleton can stay healthy. I give this team a solid chance to knock out anybody in the first round. Now, the second round, that's where it gets a little dicey. That's probably where we would need Giannis a little more. But I could see them winning in a first-round series for sure.
Yeah, my whole thing is obviously everyone should be not worried, like, oh my God, like freaking out worried, but like you should be a little like on edge, kind of knowing that there's a high chance that our superstar is not going to be playing potentially either that first series max. There's no way he's out. If the Bucks win the first series without Giannis, there's no way he's not returning that second one, just depending on how serious the injury is, but I guess we'll just kind of have to see how Lillard plays, and I don't really know kind of who they're going to play yet. If the Bucks get the second seed, they play the 7th seed? Is that how it is? Or do they play one of the play-in teams? I just forget how the NBA works at the play-in now.
Let's see.
Because
I'm trying to think who was because there was a 7. If we can look back to who was a 7 seed last year, I want to say it was either the Knicks or the Hawks.
Last season it was the Celtics.
Celtics were a 7 seed last year?
Oh, 7 seed, sorry. Last year was the Hawks, yes.
Okay, so the 7 seed would play against the 2 seed.
Okay, so
and the Hawks, I don't believe. Yeah, because realistically, the playing teams are like teams on the outside looking in, on the periphery.
Yeah,
So
right
that's why it
now,
was the Bulls. And so who's the 7th seed right now?
Philly
That
and
ooh,
Embiid is back.
ooh, that's tough. Yeah, now keep in mind too, the 76ers had a losing record without Joel Embiid in the lineup. So with Embiid being back, that makes everything else a little more difficult.
Yep, they are on a 6-game win streak right now.
And they're and look, they do have some pretty good. They do have some pretty good core guys. You know, they got Embiid, Maxey, Tobias Harris. So that's the. So they're not. So that'll be a very competitive, tough first round series.
Yep, you got Doc Rivers returning to Philly. You
Yeah.
got Embiid wanting to make a run in the playoffs. If
Mm-hmm.
the Bucks were to get eliminated to Philly in the first round, you will not hear from me for quite a while.
Uh,
That will kill me. Literally kill me.
the other thing we shouldn't overlook is the fact that Nick Nurse has already eliminated Milwaukee
Correct.
on his way to his first NBA championship. So it's not overlook that. That was 5 years ago, but it still happened and it still hurts. Um, yeah, so the Giannis injury, that'll be I mean, it's gonna be tough. So like in your mind, who's like the main guy in Giannis's absence that like absolutely has to step up?
Okay, I'm gonna say the obvious answer as Lillard, but if I'm gonna not make the obvious answer with Lillard and looking at kind of who's gonna be playing, I'm torn between Bobby and Malik Beasley because I know Bobby can score. I know Malik Beasley can score, but Bobby can score more consistently. So like I feel like if you're not gonna have Giannis being able to drive, you're gonna want someone to score points in a different way, and that's gonna be Malik Beasley with his 3-point shots. Now I don't want him taking like 15 3-pointers where it's like he's shooting every single chance he gets. Um, unless he's hot, then continue to shoot. But I feel like if he's cold, I don't want him to keep shooting. But if he can hit, I don't know, like 4 or 5 3-pointers, I feel like that could be like a good kind of makeup. Obviously, it's not going to be like a good film. Like, yeah, it's worth not having Giannis, but if Beasley can make 5 3-pointers, but I just feel like they're going to want as many guys to kind of score in the double digits than they can, outside of just two guys scoring 25 to 30 and up. I'm going to want that more stagnant shooting. I want everyone I feel like to contribute, but I want to say Bobby and Malik Beasley as like a dark horse scoring, kind of run the court kind of guy with the absence of Giannis per chance that he does not play.
Yeah, I agree. Lillard, but I'm actually going to put more of the onus on Chris Middleton. I think he has to be the one guy who has to step up because Lillard's been it's been a mixed bag for his tenure so far in Milwaukee. I understand he's dealt with a lot. It hasn't been like a lot of Dame time moments. And I think that's probably because he's going into a new role, especially being the guy in Portland and now trying to, fighting over who's the guy in Milwaukee. So that could be tough. But it has to be Chris Middleton because the reason why I say Chris Middleton is because he's dealt with so much this year. In terms of, just being super unlucky with injuries. This would be a good redemption story if Middleton were able to come back.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, I wouldn't say necessarily like doubting Chris Middleton, but obviously knowing his injury history, I guess, with the year, so 2022, the year after where they got eliminated by the Celtics, they didn't have them. All right, they didn't have him that series. Yeah, obviously you got him out the majority of last year. He's coming back. He just got hit in the mouth. He's all over the place. But yeah, if he can be a consistent scorer or just kind of guy who can run the offense, not necessarily over Lillard, but if there's a game where he can heat up, I feel like it's a good confidence booster for him. But yeah, that'll be. I guess I didn't mention Chris Middleton because I was looking at the Magic game just to kind of look at the roster, and he wasn't on there because he didn't play. But yeah, it's just going to be someone I feel like needs to just take, not necessarily take over, but there's going to be someone who needs to take that leadership position. I kind of hope it's Lillard, just because I kind of see it as, all right, I'm in the playoffs. I have a good chance of making the finals, potentially winning it. The main guy's out. I got to kind of take over, but I don't want it to be the chance where it's like I have to do everything. Like I don't. I feel like realistically, a good chance that the Bucks have without Giannis in that first round is Lillard is the leader. You got Chris Middleton as the number 2. I'll throw Bobby in at the 3. Okay, I'm Brooke Lopez. Brooke will be Brooke, but for scoring, I just hope it's not Lillard being I just need to shoot, and that's the only chance that we're gonna win is if I take 15 3-pointers and I make 3 of them. That won't do much. So I just kind of hope the game that they played against the Magic, I just kind of hope is how the playoffs look without Giannis. Again, you got Lillard, 3 of 8 shooting. Okay, again, not horrible, but that 25 kind of point minimum. He's taken the majority of the shots, but maybe Bobby is too. You throw in Brooke, obviously Chris as well. But I just don't want it to be a game where Lillard thinks he needs to score 50 points to win and kind of do it all. Kind of share the ball a little bit.
Yeah, less of the performance that he had against the Denver Nuggets a couple years ago, where he went God mode. Yeah, we those performances, and he still lost that game, which that would have made me mad if I was him.
Yeah, I don't want him to wear himself out in this first round trying to do everything. The whole team is not out. We have Giannis out. It was not a net series where Kevin Durant literally had to do everything. But yeah, I just don't want it to be the mentality of, all right, I got to score every point, which I don't see him doing realistically. But, in the off chance, it's just you kind of hope that things are kind of spread out evenly where everyone's contributing. And I feel like there's not one person that you just have to rely on in order to fit the missing piece of your superstar.
Well, the good news is Damian Lillard hasn't played a whole lot of playoff basketball in his career, so he should be fresh and ready to go. Now, the other guys I can't really speak for, like Brooke Lopez, Middleton, Giannis, Connaughton, the playoff mainstays, I can't speak for them. Damian Lillard, his a lot of what do they say? There's a lot of miles that you play in playoff basketball.
Yep, and he's got some good playoff history though with his 2 game winners to kind of send some teams home against Rockets and Thunder. So we'll kind of see what game we get, but yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm excited for the playoffs just to kind of see how things kind of lay out for the Bucks without Giannis now potentially for a few games, and kind of see how Lillard kind of takes over potentially against any team.
Yep. So, Evan, you got anything else?
I do not. Again, we got 2 games left. Today against the Thunder, and then Sunday against the Magic for the last game of the season. And again, we are looking at the Bucks to claim the 2nd seed. They need to win 1 game.
Yep.
I don't know if it's going to be tonight with a lot of guys out, but who knows? But the Bucks own the tiebreaker to the Knicks. The Knicks would have to win out the season. The Bucks have to go over 2, I think, to bounce them down to number 3. And honestly, if the Bucks go to 3 and they play the Heat, I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to pre-guess, but I just want to play a team where I would just feel comfortable without Giannis. I just don't know about Philly. I never know about Philly. I hate Philly. One of my bosses is a Philly fan, so I don't want that. And we'll see. We'll see though. But yeah, they gotta win 1 game. Either tonight against the Thunder. It's gonna be a Pat Beverly game. Maybe this is a game that Malik Beasley just kind of shoots a lot more to just kind of get that shot back potentially. But yeah, they either got to win against OKC or the Magic. But yeah, only got 2 games left the regular season, and it's playoff time.
Yep. So thank you guys for tuning in to the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast, and we will see you next week.